Good day, everyone. We have two major storm systems approaching, and it is important to know that they will likely impact your Thanksgiving plans. This means we are looking at significant snowfall, severe weather that includes a risk of tornadoes, and a surge of bitter Arctic cold on the horizon. What makes this particular weather pattern so concerning is that all of the necessary ingredients are coming together at the very same time. We have cold air that is about to collide with several storm systems in the jet stream, and the atmosphere holds just enough warmth and moisture to create a number of very different outcomes. A small shift in any one of these atmospheric pieces could change who receives severe weather, who gets heavy snow, and where the most significant disruptions develop during one of the busiest travel weeks of the year. So, let's break down how these two storms will evolve and what you need to know. It is always wise to be prepared before you hit the road for Thanksgiving. We are going to begin with the most important part of our weather pattern, which is the jet stream. This powerful river of air will ultimately control our weather for the next couple of weeks, and we will begin with today, which is Sunday. At this moment, we have a large storm system located in the southwest, and this is actually going to begin bringing severe weather today to Texas. Then, for tomorrow and Tuesday, we have a more elevated risk of severe weather stretching from central and east Texas all the way through the deep south and into the Ohio Valley. In those areas, damaging winds, large hail, and a few tornadoes will be possible. While that is happening, we have another large storm system moving into the northeast right now that is going to bring some cold air as we head into Monday and Tuesday, which will drop temperatures by about 10 to 20 degrees. By Monday and Tuesday, the first storm will make its way across the Ohio Valley. At the same time, we are going to have an Alberta Clipper storm system that will make its way across Montana and North Dakota. This is forecast to bring some heavy snowfall to the northern plains and the upper Midwest. This snow is expected by the middle of this week, and that could certainly cause some problems for traveling if you are going anywhere for the Thanksgiving holiday. On top of that, we are going to have rather strong mid-level winds all across the United States. This means if you are traveling by airplane, you could experience some turbulence if you are flying from north to south or from south to north, so please keep that in mind if you are traveling anywhere across the country this week. By Wednesday and Thursday, we will have a large storm system located over the Great Lakes, which will likely bring some quite significant lake effect snow. This will affect areas like Michigan, Wisconsin, New York, and Pennsylvania, so please be ready for that. Then, by the time we go into Friday and Saturday, we are going to have a very significant dip in our jet stream, which means that we are going to experience some very cold air coming down from Canada. When this cold air combines with another storm system that is going to make its way out of the Pacific Ocean, we could have a major storm system by next weekend that could bring a great deal of snow and more severe weather from the Midwest back into the southern plains. And I do believe our storm system next weekend is going to be considerably more impactful than what is happening this Tuesday and Wednesday. So that is certainly something to keep a close eye on. We could literally have a major storm right before and right after Thanksgiving, with both causing significant travel problems for many people. Then, following Thanksgiving and Black Friday, we are going to see a major storm impact the United States during the first few days of December. This has become very likely at this point, as many of our weather models have been showing this over the last several days. This is likely going to bring a host of problems, including severe weather and snow. It may perhaps even bring ice to parts of the country. And we could even see our first winter storm of the season line up here across parts of the Midwest, stretching all the way back into the southern plains. We will talk more about this in just a moment, but it looks much more likely than before that we are indeed going to see a very active start to December. Now, we have a great deal to talk about in this forecast. I want to begin by discussing our temperature anomalies. It is going to cool down significantly over the next couple of weeks as we have multiple shots of cold air coming our way. Right now, we have above average temperatures across the entire country. All the numbers that you see on this map represent the difference from the average temperature in Fahrenheit. So, many areas are around 5 to 15 degrees above average right now. Then, by the early part of this week, some areas in the Midwest and the Southeast will be as much as 20 degrees above average. Record-breaking heat is a possibility for Monday and Tuesday. Then, by Wednesday and Thursday, our first shot of cold air will arrive, and that will be impacting much of the United States right in time for Thanksgiving. That includes the Ohio Valley, the Southeast, and also the Midwest, where temperatures are likely going to drop by about 5 to 15 degrees below average. Then, by Friday and Saturday, that cold air is going to build across the Northeast. Heat will build once again in the southern plains by around the 29th. And then, the first few days of December is when we could get a serious shot of Arctic air. It is still uncertain just how cold it is going to get, as it is still too early to tell with exact precision. However, I do think we are going to see a major Arctic blast. We are talking about the possibility of 20 to 30 degrees below average across the Great Plains by Wednesday or Thursday of the following week. So, to be clear, not this coming week, but the next one, is when we will be keeping an eye on this possibility to impact the United States. And it does appear as if the first couple of weeks of December will be cold. It is not going to be a warm start to December by any means. It looks as though we are going to continue to have repeated shots of cold air. One thing I will point out, though, is if you are in the southeast, including Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, or Alabama, these are areas that are likely going to be dominated by a strong ridge of high pressure. This will be the case for at least the next couple of weeks, so it is very unlikely that we are really going to see much of that Arctic air reach this particular area. Now, let's go into more detail on where we are going to see severe weather, snow, and the threat of ice over the next 10 to 14 days. We will begin with what is happening today into tomorrow. A large storm system is currently forming across the southern plains. We have a low risk of severe weather today across parts of central and west Texas, with hail and wind being the biggest concerns. But Monday and Tuesday is where things are really going to intensify. Monday afternoon and evening, we are going to have a more elevated risk of severe weather, mainly in this corridor where there will be a possibility of a few tornadoes. So please make sure that you are staying weather aware. We will go into more detail on the timing and also the specific threats in just a moment. And as we go into Monday night and Tuesday, the storm system will move further to the east and more severe weather will be a possibility in the Ohio Valley and the Dixie Alley on Tuesday, with wind, hail, and a few tornadoes once again being possible. These two storm systems will then merge as we go into Tuesday night. Heavy snow is possible across Minnesota, the Dakotas, and also into northern Wisconsin as we head into late Tuesday and early Wednesday. We can see a coating to a few inches across most areas north of Wausau. Then, as we go into Wednesday afternoon and evening, that storm system will move into the northeast. Then, on Thanksgiving Day, if you are in the Pacific Northwest or in New England, those are really the main areas where there is some concern in terms of weather conditions. We are looking at least at some snowfall. Most of this will be lake effect snow. This will be coming off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario during the daytime on Thursday, so any plans that you may have outdoors will likely be affected. And also, in the Pacific Northwest, we will have plenty of moisture up there where both rain and snow will be falling. And this energy right here is what is going to fuel our next storm system, which is going to arrive as we go into the weekend and also into early next week. So, this next one looks to be forming as we go into Friday and Saturday. Therefore, on Black Friday, we will have a large storm system attempting to form here across the Great Plains. We are likely going to see some winter storm aspects to this particular system. I still think it is a little too early for specific details, but snow appears more likely in this region here across the northern plains, the Midwest, and even perhaps into the Ohio Valley by Saturday or Sunday. So, as we go into Saturday, now, this storm system is expected to expand, and with that comes the possibility of severe weather, which could be a concern for folks in the Deep South on Saturday or Sunday. Then, looking northward, snow is going to cover areas across the Great Lakes and into the Midwest. It is still a bit too early to say exactly how much snow will fall, but it certainly looks like many of you will be seeing your first snowfall of the season. As we move into Saturday night and early Sunday morning, the storm will continue its journey eastward. While it will likely begin to weaken and lose some of its structure, we can still expect some showers and thunderstorms all along the East Coast. Now, looking beyond that time frame, the forecast becomes a good deal more uncertain. However, I am seeing a number of signals in the data that point toward the possibility of another major storm system, perhaps even two, during the first few days of December. For instance, the GFS forecast model is currently projecting a very large area of snow, stretching all the way from Arizona clear back to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as we head into Tuesday of next week. That would be right around December 2nd. Now, will this exact scenario happen? It is simply too early to tell with any certainty, but I do believe the potential for a significant storm system is quite real for the first few days of December. Now, the GFS model is also showing something quite unusual that I want to bring to your attention. For 5 consecutive model runs now, which is over a full day, it is suggested that a tropical storm or even a hurricane could develop in the Gulf of Mexico. Let me be very clear, I am not forecasting this to happen, and I believe the chances are extremely low. However, if this were to materialize, it would be something we would need to watch very closely during the first week of December. It would be a truly remarkable event, as we have not seen a tropical storm in December for many years. It would certainly be a rarity, that is for sure. Again, it is far too early to know if this will come to pass, but it is something we will be monitoring. At the very least, the main takeaway here is that the weather pattern is going to be exceptionally active over the next 10 days or so. With that in mind, let's take a more detailed look at the severe weather potential for the next few days, starting with today. For Sunday, there is a marginal threat of severe weather in an area that stretches from Dallas-Fort Worth all the way back into West Texas near Midland. The primary concerns in that region will be strong winds and hail. As of right now, there is no significant tornado risk, and I do not anticipate that changing for the rest of the day. However, tomorrow is a different situation entirely. Monday's forecast presents a more serious picture, with a slight risk for severe weather from southern Arkansas down into parts of central Texas near Waco. A marginal threat also extends from Tupelo, Mississippi, back toward the Dallas-Fort Worth area and also includes Houston, Texas. On Monday, our main concerns will be damaging winds and hail that could be as large as golf balls. Importantly, there is also a 5% tornado risk, which is a more elevated threat, particularly for an area that includes Shreveport and back toward Tyler, Texas. I do believe it is likely we will see at least a couple of tornadoes tomorrow afternoon and into the evening. The overall environment is quite favorable for storms, with a decent amount of wind shear present in the atmosphere, which simply means there is a good deal of rotation available. This rotation high in the atmosphere helps create the potential for tornadoes. The exact threat will depend on how the storms organize, whether they remain as individual cells or merge into a more disorganized line. We cannot know that for certain just yet, but I do think a few tornadoes are a distinct possibility, so please be sure to stay weather aware. We may also provide live coverage tomorrow, so I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you will be alerted if we do go live. Now, as we look ahead to Tuesday, the severe weather threat will shift farther to the east. A marginal risk is in place from New Orleans over to central and northern Alabama. This also includes southern Tennessee and the Atlanta, Georgia area. For Tuesday, the main concerns will be damaging winds and large hail, though there is also a risk for a couple of tornadoes. Now, going back to Monday, I want to emphasize that the tornado threat for that day looks particularly concerning. One of the key factors I am looking at is a measurement we call the significant tornado parameter, and those values are expected to be higher than usual. This will be on Monday afternoon and evening. You can see we are forecasting a fairly large corridor across parts of East Texas and western Louisiana with values reaching upwards of 4 and 5. Those numbers indicate a more medium-level tornado risk for Monday afternoon and evening. I believe the peak time for this threat will likely be around or just after sunset, with the main time frame falling anywhere from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon until about 9 o'clock in the evening. I am leaning toward this being a threat that continues after dark, particularly across Louisiana and Texas. So, if you live anywhere in East Texas or western Louisiana, it is very important that you stay informed tomorrow. Now, let's discuss the timing of this severe weather in more detail, starting with what is happening today. We will see some scattered storms developing, mainly across West Texas later this afternoon. The primary concern with these will be hail, and the main window for that is between about 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock this evening. Then, through the overnight hours and into tomorrow morning, these storms will begin to approach the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Then, as we move into Monday, during the late morning and early afternoon, we will see a cluster of showers stretching from northern Arkansas down into central Texas. We will be watching this area closely, as early as 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for storms to begin developing. These will likely start as fairly small supercells. However, any storm that can remain as a separate individual cell will have the potential to produce a tornado. I would not even rule out the possibility of a strong tornado, especially during the late afternoon hours. By about 5 o'clock, we could see 1 or 2 of these individual supercells forming ahead of the main cluster of showers. It is those particular storms that may carry a more significant tornado threat. Then, as we go into the evening, the storms will likely organize into more of a solid line. Even so, a tornado risk could still exist within that line, but at the very least, we can expect damaging winds and hail the size of quarters to $50. This will continue until about midnight, when the storms should begin to weaken as they cross the Mississippi Valley. Then on Tuesday, the threat of severe weather will continue across the southeast. The morning hours are expected to be quite stormy. Although we are not expecting widespread severe weather at that time, it is during the early to mid-afternoon hours that new storms will develop along a cold front. This will bring the possibility for some hail, strong winds, and a couple of tornadoes during the afternoon and into the early evening. This map you see here is for 6 o'clock. The most active weather will likely be across central and northern Alabama, just south of Huntsville, and back into central and southern Mississippi, just to the north of Mobile. Later in the evening, these storms will start to weaken as they move toward the Atlanta area, as well as South Carolina and North Carolina. By the time we get to Wednesday, conditions should begin to clear out. As always, I want to thank you all so much for joining me for today's forecast. If you are new to our channel, I hope you will consider subscribing. We will likely have another update tomorrow, and a live stream is also a possibility. So please do subscribe to the channel. We will have many cameras and storm chasers featured there when the severe weather moves in tomorrow. Thank you again for your time, and we will see you all in the next video.